Hi everyone,
G'day.
and welcome to Parkside Live. We are so thankful that you could join us. The reason we're giggling is we just were trying something a bit different tonight. Yeah.
New cameraman, thank you Adira for
Yes.
starting us off.
Yes. And hopefully our conversation tonight will maybe make you laugh, make you smile, encourage you, maybe challenge you too about how you think about the light.
Definitely. I want to start by asking you to think about how much of your day is spent indoors versus outdoors. What's that for you? I mean, do you have an average day?
Not really. It depends. It depends on the day. There are some days where we can be out and about a lot, and then other days where it's like, oh, we need to get caught up on, some schoolwork and stuff that needs to be done maybe inside. I would still say I'm probably inside more than I would like, because I like being out in nature, and so do the girls. But I would still probably say maybe we live more of our life inside than outside. It might just be a small fraction, but yeah, I think it would be that.
And in conversations that we've had, you're actually fairly intentional about wanting to spend a certain amount of time outside. That's something that matters.
Yeah.
You've looked into the benefits.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. For me, almost incidentally, because I work in the construction sector, I'm outdoors most of the day. And even as I reflect back on my life, a lot of the careers I've had have been in the outdoors. Things that I've enjoyed doing recreationally, like bushwalking. So I'm outdoors a lot. And I remember a particular moment when I was working on a project and looking at what needed to be done, and I was in the middle of building some framework for a deck. And I just had this sense that I was running out of time on that day. And I thought, I'm not going to get this done. And so I started working. Now, I wasn't wearing a watch. I had my phone in my pocket that time at the time. And so I just kept working. And then when I finally stopped and I looked, the time on my watch didn't match the time that I felt it was. I'd been so used to working in summer, where we have 15 hours of daylight, that I forgot that it was winter. And so
It must be really late.
it was getting dark, but it was only about 3:30 in the afternoon. And I thought, I've still got a couple of hours of daylight. But I'd become so in tune with the natural light that I was responding to what I felt it was, rather than, I guess, what the measured time was. And I think that our relationship with light can have a pretty profound effect on the way that we see our lives. In where we live, we have this thing called daylight saving, where you adjust your clocks. And so that means that for some people now, they can have sunlight in the morning and in the afternoon. As I mentioned before, we're living in 15 hours of daylight. Now that has some great effects for your health. A bit more vitamin D if you're smart about it. A few risks such as cancer. But also there are rhythms in our body that are determined by the sun. And so if you get out and you view a certain amount of sunlight in the morning, it will set the hormonal rhythms of your body. Things like the release of cortisol, which we associate with stress, it will get you up and moving. So the point is that our relationship with light actually affects how our lives play out. And I want to draw some inspiration from the scriptures tonight. We're just talking about a book, 1 John. And in 1 John chapter 1, it just says this. 1 John chapter 1 and verse 1, it says, "In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it." And so there's a lot there, but we just want to focus on this idea of light. And I want to just talk for a minute about how light works in your life. So, for many of us, we live in a world where light responds to a switch.
Yeah.
That we press a button on a wall and almost instantly light comes in, shines brightly. Now, there can be good things about that. There can be bad things about that. I recently had to wake up one of our daughters. Everyone else in the house was awake. She was still in a room. The blind was down. The blankets were kind of over her head. And I felt that it was time to get up. So I walked in, flicked the light on, opened the window, and pulled the sheet back from over her head. And her response to that light was eyes shut even more tightly, hands went up to protect the eyes. And often that's how light invades our lives right now. You're driving and you see headlights coming the other way. It's not a helpful thing. There's a city that I used to drive from, and as I'd come home, I could see the lights of our city from 50 kilometres away, this glow in the sky. And I wonder, perhaps you've had a similar experience. But the light doesn't always work that way. And for most of human history, light has functioned in a very different way. I wonder when the last time was that you actually saw a sunrise. Well, we were having a chat around this table this morning, and someone said, "Oh, I don't think that was even in 2025." And maybe that's your relationship with the start of the day. I've not seen a sunrise in I don't know how long. When was the last time you saw a sunrise?
Probably a month or two ago. We try and do a sunrise down the beach. We don't live far from the coast. Every couple of months, because we love getting up early and just watching it rise. So
from the last sunrise that you saw, can you describe what you remember?
We usually try and get up and get out when first light is happening. So it's you're not seeing the sun or anything, but the sky's changing colours, and usually there's some reflection on the clouds. If there's a bit of a cloudy day, it actually makes a bit more of a beautiful sunrise. So the sky is going from black to blues and goldens, and then you've got probably in the middle of the horizon you see a nice bright line. It gets brighter, and then you've got the sun just slowly kind of popping up, but it seems it's very, very slow. Then all of a sudden the sun's in the sky. There's kind of that kind of thing. We're waiting, and then there it is.
Yeah. It is a slow transition.
Yeah.
We used to go and have breakfast on the beach, and there was this mad thing where we'd get together, we'd run around and play silly games most of the night, maybe get 2 hours sleep, jump into cars really early in the morning and get to the beach just as you're describing that. And everything would go from this kind of dark grey where you could make out shapes, but everything was almost black, dark grey, and then gradually the greys would lighten.
Yeah.
And then as the greys began to lighten, ever so slowly, you just see colour start to soak into things. And so rocks which had just before appeared grey, you started to see some of the oranges and the browns in the rocks. Even the sand, which looked like almost an off-white, would then start to show a bit of the yellow, and even the ocean water, which was black, would then start, And the other thing I remember is the dip in temperature. If you got there early enough, you'd notice that the temperature would then dip just before the sun started to come up. And of course, if you've never seen a sunrise, you just have to take our word for this. But for most of human history, this is how light has entered the world. There is a slow process. And when we are seeking light in a dark world, I think we like it to be instant. I need this now.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be a real need. That when we have run out of money to provide for our family, wanting hope, wanting light, wanting funding can be a now reality. When you are in a difficult relationship, wanting hope, wanting light, wanting change can be a need for now. Often the way that light breaks in is the way that we have described a sunrise, that slowly things start to shift. And what strikes me about a sunrise is the way that we can go to the beach and watch a sunrise, and everyone there doesn't know each other at all, and yet we're all standing facing the same way, looking in the same direction, waiting in anticipation for that same moment. As soon as the sun rises, everyone just does their own thing again. You know, you might strike up a conversation to discuss it. But as we move through our lives, particularly when everything seems a bit grey and a bit bleak, we are looking for that moment. We are searching for that something. And we celebrate that in a lot of different ways. You know, at this, or just recently, where we live, some people have celebrated the festival of Diwali, the festival of light, a celebration of the light that is in the world. If you live in a hemisphere where it gets dark from at this time of year, you celebrate the shortest day, because after that, more light starts to appear. So it doesn't matter what we believe, and yet rather uniquely here, we're saying, well, there is a light that can dawn on your life. And if you're exploring faith, if you are exploring what it means to be human, we want that, boom, I've got it. Enlightenment, some people call it. And yet it is often a slow process of light dawning. And we can look back and say, this was the change. And what we see here is that Jesus actually says, look, I am that light that you're looking for. The invitation to experience the colour and the change that Jesus can bring. And that's a profound change. And as we live in a world that is filled with darkness, you know. We can see that in the governments of the world. We can see that in the division we have in discussions with people. There's a lot of darkness in the world. And there's a famous statement made by Martin Luther King, who said about this darkness, you know, we can attempt to fight against darkness using that same power. We can attempt to match violence with violence. We can attempt to match force with force, oppression with oppression. And that may actually even bring us results in the short term. The ultimate result of that is we just simply add to the darkness in the world. We're simply adding to the violence. When we defeat violence by using violence, we are simply adding to the violence in the world. And yet true change, according to Martin Luther King, says only light can overcome darkness. Hate does not defeat hate. And what we see here is this light that Jesus says, I am the light of the world. The darkness cannot extinguish it. Darkness isn't anything except the absence of light. And when we're in the middle of darkness, we know that very well. If you've ever been in a desperate situation, you know the absence of hope. You know the absence of life in darkness. But have you ever experienced the presence of light in a dark moment? The presence of life in a grey situation? That's the invitation that Jesus makes here, is come to me and receive light, a life-giving light. And as we approach a time of year where for a lot of people, where we live, we have some call-in lines where people who are struggling with issues can call in and say, I need help. And those call-in lines say that at this time of year, over Christmas, calls go up. We find that family situations often deteriorate at this time of year because we're missing the light. We are missing the life. And I don't say that as a trite cliche. You know, there are real issues confronting people, and when we're confronted by people saying, "Oh, just buy this, just get together with these people," the pressure can pile on. We can get lost in the darkness, in the hopelessness. When we are looking at a world that seems increasingly on a path of destruction, where we are putting profit before future, it seems hopeless. And yet the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot extinguish it. And there's another way to understand this, that also the darkness cannot understand it. That when we embrace the light, we can be set up to be misunderstood. Matter of fact, John a little bit further says that this light that Jesus brought, some people didn't recognize it, and some people, when they did recognize it, they did not even accept it. This is not a guarantee of victory, but it is an invitation to life. And then elsewhere, actually, this same Jesus makes this statement. He says, I am the light of the world. That's what we said here. But then he goes on and he says, and you are the light of the world. You are the light of the world, like a city on the hill, the glow of which you can see from 50 kilometers away. And he says, let your light shine. Don't put a lid over it. Let your light shine. What does it mean in a world that is increasingly dark to let our light shine? Well, I want to just share something. We're going to jump into just another passage here. And this is a passage in a book called Isaiah. And in Isaiah chapter 58, we just read this, and it's just a short thing. He talks about light. He says, Isaiah chapter 58, and he says, here we go. Then your light will shine. Down in verse 8 here, he says, then your salvation will come like the dawn, like what we've just been talking about. Then your wounds will heal. Then you'll be led forward by godliness. Then the light of God will protect you from behind. Then when you call on God, he'll answer, yes, I'm here. He will quickly reply. Then. So there is this moment when the light that gives life to the world actually is expressed through us. But that moment is defined as this. And he says it quite clearly here. He says, remove the heavy yoke of oppression. Stop pointing your finger and spreading vicious rumors. Feed the hungry. Help those in trouble. It is then that your light will shine in the darkness, and the darkness around you will be as bright as noon. The guidance that you seek, God will guide you continually, giving you water when you are dry and restoring your strength. You will then be like a well-watered garden. You will then be like an ever-flowing spring. And this was a message given to a group of people who thought they had the light, who thought they were life-giving, and yet this was a message saying, you've missed the moment. You are participating in this oppression. You are participating in starving the already hungry. You are participating in bad business practice. And the promise is that if we want to be the expression of light in this world, it says right here, stop that. To stand up against oppression. To speak out against people who speak against others. And as we say those words, I think there are many people for whom this is a description of their life. There are many people in this world who are living under oppression. That may be political oppression, a government that is more intent on furthering its own ends than looking after the people that it has been elected to serve. There are many people who are on the end of financial oppression, who are forced to work for wages that does not even sustain life. There are some people who are under physical oppression, that people are simply saying, we're going to inflict physical pain on you unless you do this. There are some people here, many people in this world, who are already hungry. And I want to say that that is not my experience. I do not consider myself to be oppressed. I wonder about you. Do you consider yourself to be an oppressed person? I don't consider myself to be a hungry person. When was the last time you actually needed a feed? I don't consider myself to be someone who's gossiped about. And yet the invitation for me then is not to just look at my life. The invitation for me to be the light is actually to look beyond myself, to actually walk around alert and awake to what is going on around me, and to see injustice. And like the light shone into a dark world, it's up to me to step in. And that is the invitation of the light that cannot be extinguished. That when we take a step of faith, it's not just to paint ourselves into a corner of comfort and we say, oh no, I'm being oppressed here. Oh no, this is unjust. For many of us, it's actually looking beyond ourselves, and just like the God who stepped into our lives, we step into a situation, not as the saviour, but as a servant. And that's what it means to be the expression of light. And as we've had this conversation, perhaps you've felt some light shining on some areas in your life. You may want to experience that light for the first time. And this is a moment of decision. You may want to be a better expression of that life-giving light in this world. And this again is a moment of faith. You don't need to know where it ends. You just need to know this step and trust that life-giving light will lead you forward in love. And if that's a decision that you're prepared to make as you're watching this, we want to invite you to say just a simple prayer. And that prayer just goes like this: Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life. That is a prayer to experience more of the life-giving light from the Creator of this world. That is a prayer to live a greater expression of God's light in this world. If you're ready, pray with us now. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life-giving light. Jesus, I give you my life. Give me your life-giving light. And if that's a prayer that you've just prayed, then we would love to support you on whatever the next step is. Please drop us a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Drop us a direct message if you're watching on social media. Or you can stop in around this table if you're coming through Southwest Sydney on a Sunday morning. Thanks for tuning in. God bless you.
Bye.